readers have absolutely loved these masterclasses with Michael Friedjohn. You know, I've often stood in front of a known painting and then with the guidance of an expert, a curator or an art historian, I've just gained knowledge and insight into the painting that has broadened my appreciation and understanding of that work in the context of the time. And Michael Friedjohn has the ability to do that with wine. He has an uncanny ability to select wines around a theme and then to illustrate that theme in a way that broadens your knowledge and your appreciation of the wines. He makes you see known wines with new eyes. And I think our readers really, really enjoy his masterclasses.
So the problem with committing real money to an asset which isn't easily traded is simply the matter of timing. You put your money in, you have to hold it, and you have to sell it at an optimum time. One of the benefits of wine is that over time, theoretically, it gets better, and secondly, the amount of available stock decreases. So hanging on is a good thing to do, providing you don't hang on too long, and providing you have in mind an exit strategy. And that means where you're going to sell it and how you're going to sell it. And since particularly in South Africa, there isn't a well-developed secondary market, you need to be sure in advance that what you're investing in will appeal to the limited but existent secondary market that is there, and obviously will take up some stock with more enthusiasm than others. That restriction aside, what we have seen in the last 10 years is that select items, certain strong wines, strong brands, have grown enormously in that period and certainly have outperformed most of the other indices. The only other reservation is cost of exiting, which of course means that if you're going through an auction house, negotiate your seller's commission in advance. We've seen an extraordinary change in the number and origin of blue chip wine investments internationally in the last couple of decades. If you go back to the end of the 20th century, it was mainly first growth Bordeaux and select Burgundies. Now that's expanded considerably. There are even second labels of first growths that are investable in the context of the international investment markets. In the same spirit, we've seen quite a lot of trade, good trade, in top-end Super Tuscans, in wines from Napa, and even ones from Australia other than Grange, which has always been an investable. So what we're seeing is that the new generation of wine investors are looking for more adventurous assets. And the Cape is certainly moving into that space. Our best known and top-end producers sell out internationally in the same speed that their current local sort of allocations, their wines of the year, are mopped up by local consumers. And this suggests to me that over the next 5 to 10 years, those wines will only really be available in an auction environment, and those auctions are as likely to take place overseas as they would here. And so I think we can reasonably expect that the real blue chip South African investable wines will find a platform at the top auction houses, certainly in the UK, probably based on my own personal experience in Hong Kong, and maybe even in France and in the United States.
I certainly think investing in South African wine is a wise option. If you look at the varieties we have and the quality and at the price that you can get great quality wine, it's incredibly valuable. In terms of being a lucrative option, at this stage, I think the secondary market is not well enough developed for it to be a purely investment option. But as a wine drinker, investing in wine for the short to medium term is incredibly value generating and rewarding experience in South Africa. And who knows, maybe in a few years' time, that secondary market would have developed. So I think there's two things that are really important. Firstly, what do you like? Because ultimately, when you invest in wine, you have to consider the option that you will have to bear the dividends yourself. And if you invest in something you like, even if it becomes incredibly valuable, you might select to drink that wine yourself at some point. The other thing that's important is to select the right type of producers that are able to consistently produce good quality wine. These producers focus on wines that can become investment options. So they are wines that are made not just to last 8 to 10 years, but every vintage to last 8 to 10 years. So these wines tend to build up brands over the long term, and these brands are actually that makes the wine an investable option. So I would do a bit of both. I would invest a bit in wine that you really like and that you think will develop over time, almost like a small cap investment, but also don't overlook those blue chip investments that over time just get better and better.